super loud. And it's not blocking your face for the video, in case you did not know. But I sang rock and roll for so many years that it's like built in. Sing a song of sixpence. Okay. So this next cat came onto the scene with some expert counsel segments that impressed everybody. My personal favorite, well, yeah, it's my favorite right now, is still the Bitters segment that was apparently your second segment for the Survival Podcast. Ken has a lot of hidden talents that you'll be hearing about today. He's a sommelier. Is that how I say that? Yeah, so he knows how to taste stuff. That's basically what that means, right? Yeah. Anyway, come on up. Let's welcome Ken Daniels to talk about This is the Whey.
Test. All right. Everybody, hey, welcome. What an honor to be here. My first TSP. This is a workshop. This is incredible. So, so we're going to talk about Whey today. But I've been really wanting to see if I can, I look back through the archives and there was so many topics about Whey. I mean, everything from adding it into your aquaponics to breading with it to different just techniques, baking with it, all cool stuff. But I wanted to find something that maybe you guys have never heard of. If you have, you're not too familiar with, and then be able to connect it into a homestead or ways we can expand some of the things that we're cooking on homestead. So I hope it's fun. There's going to be another segment in here we'll talk about in a second about a lifestyle segment, which is kind of cool. But thanks to my wife for making all these cool graphics for me here. So if she's watching, I love you. All right. So who the hell am I? So a lot of the questions that I've been asked this weekend was very, I got to this, I added this slide really because I realized that really none of you really know who the hell I am, and that's okay. I came on so quickly, and is he a chef? Is he a mixologist? What the hell does he do? And to be quite honest with you, I don't really know what the hell I do. My first company was called Mishmash Productions because it was just a mishmash of bullshit that I put together. The real answer, though, is that through my career, I like studying and I like picking up new things and I like being an apprentice and we'll get into that in a second. But some of these things up here, like, do you have a laser pointer? Apologize for, you don't have to. That's all right. Look at this built-in laser pointer. So these are some of the cocktails that I've done and stuff, really cool, intricate things, food. I mean, all this stuff here is like it's a butterfly PT infusion. It's alkaline. So when you put acid into it, it changes color. This one was for a client that wanted nice. My man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. No, you're good. You're good. That one right there, it was for a woman who had a gene or something named after her. She found it. And that's a jicama plant that I candied and then curled in the cocktail, made about 250 of them for a client. And it looked like a double helix, right? And the concept was really cool. Like this one down here is like a beet. It's like a beet liqueur that I made with a goat cheese foam and candied pistachios for Christmas. I don't know, just some real cool stuff. Up here, you'll find out that I have some beer knowledge as well. And so I made a wort and then I rendered that wort down into a syrup. And I made like a combination of a beer whiskey sour. So I was sweetening it with the wort, cereal wort, and I shaked it with like Centennial hops or Cascade hops. Really interesting flavors. I take my knowledge of food and I combine it with mixology or whatever I'm doing. Let me pull this out. So let's go through the credentials. I don't really like talking about myself too much, but I do think you guys need to know what I do. So if you ever have questions or anybody who's listening, there's a scope of things I do know that I've always feel comfortable telling you. Nicole said, yes, I'm a certified sommelier, meaning that I've been tested and credentialed out to know almost every dang wine in this world, where it comes from, taste evaluations and laws through every region down to like the county. So if you have any wine questions, that it does even fall into some wine growing stuff. I'm not a wine grower, but we do have to learn that stuff. So enology is kind of something we have to do. A lot of people don't know sommelier, though, also has to learn about every spirit in the world. We also have a tea section that I added into it. So I do know a little bit about tea. But my love for wine, I actually do not like wine. And if you actually know, I really don't even drink that much. I'll be honest with you. My love fell into the history, the anthropology, etymology of spirits, learning about what we drink, why we drink it, and then trying to incorporate it into this world. So let's continue quickly. Yes, I've been a chef since about 2000. Worked on some really cool chefs. Did a bunch of sea time on like not cruise ships, big sail ships out in the Pacific. I did a lot of time out there. Really got my footing down in catering, right? Catering was a big thing. Got tired of that, went into the restaurant industry, started at Dick's Last Resort. If you get to know me, I have a very sharp tongue and I'm very thick skinned, so please bring it on. I do not mind. But I worked my way up to the corporate level there, then switched over to fine dining. I worked my level up there, director of ops for different places and big companies. Hated it, right? In between, went to school, the World Brewing Academy, and got a certificate of brewing for brew science. So technically pretty good at brewing beer. I really don't do it much anymore, but I love the science of it. Later on, got the sommelier title. Ended up becoming the former Whiskey Associate Ambassador for Glenfiddich out of Scotland. I'm also a former ambassador for Art of the Spirits out of Colorado, a bunch of other places. I do a lot of, because of the tasting, I do a lot of whiskey evaluation through the process of literally fill new moonshine all the way through barrel picks. So in COVID, during the hiatus, I actually was head of a pretty decent sized liquor stores. Like my wife said, I need to go out and get a job. And I was like, all right, cool. And so I went out and this guy had a liquor store in South Texas, and he wanted to do over 100 single barrels of whiskey, rum, tequila, or gin in 1 year. And he found out my credentials, and he said, you've got $2.5 million. I need 1 year, get it done, and put me on a plane a week later. And I was out talking to all my colleagues in Kentucky and all across the country and down into Mexico. So a lot of knowledge about whiskey, just tequila, gin. It's ad nauseum kind of the things that I scope in. Write for a couple of magazines. I mean, yada, 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 right? I mean, if you want my bio, go on my dang website. So ended up doing all that great stuff. And I go, how the hell I'm tired of working in the industry. I need to make money. So I started a consulting company contrary to what Jack has always said about consulting. And I've learned his headaches over the last 7 to 8 years. The hardest, I was talking to Joel about this, the hardest people to not train the people, it's to train the owners. You have great knowledge. I know I have great knowledge. I've proven track record, and yet sometimes owners are the hardest people to kind of pull over. But I get there, and I've got some really cool techniques, and I've been doing a great job doing it, and I'm super proud of that. We've been doing very well. But the idea is this: is if you have any questions for me about any of the scope of things, I tell you, I humbly take that expert council member slot, but I don't deem myself as an expert, right? I'm constantly learning, and that's kind of what we're going to get to next. So last year was the height of basically my career as far as me being a consultant in my company. We did over 300 days on the road around the country, just helping restaurants and catering companies. And we'll get to that in a second. My wife said to me, you need to stay home. Money's great. You need to stay home. So first of the year I was home and I wasn't doing jack shit. And she said, can you go get a job? I'm tired of you playing games. And yeah. So I saw a listing for something I've always wanted to do at first year, and that was become a cheesemaker, right? So this year, I urge everyone in here, go in, dumb, deaf, and blind, and be an apprentice. I threw down my CV to this owner. She's like, what are you doing here? And I said, teach. I will volunteer if I have to. She goes, I'm going to give you minimum wage, right? And she goes, I'm going to give you shit tests. I'm like, all right. So twice a week, I'm driving 3 hours one way to the creamer, to the dairy, to pick up raw milk. That's twice a week, 3 hours back, 2 hours back, right? Just so I can learn how to make cheese, right? Andrea, this is for you. You were saying how you love cheese over there, right? So I got the lesson. I just left this position in October, but man, when you talk about cultured actual cheese, like these are manchegos that I brined in about 12 hours of this salt brine. These are smoked pecan wood, same manchego. You can see all the testing units here. This is what cheese looks like in the cave, right? And then this is what it's supposed to look like as you're curing it, right? Or you're fermenting it. Now that's my ugly mug there. The point of this is I knew nothing about cheese. I knew a lot about food. And I knew a lot about science. I knew a lot, but I had never learned about anything like that. And so to me, this is people ask, how do you know so much? Every time I went into a situation, I went in as an apprentice, right? I don't care how. Look at my resume. I don't give a crap about that. I've learned more from JR. JR, where the hell are you? I've learned more from JR about distilling, right? I love distilling. I used to distill all the time, right? I've learned more from him in the one day, right? Charging the thumper box and he's got this new mead that he wants to distill. I'm going to keep in touch with this guy forever. That's why I love about being here. I'm learning more from you guys just by listening. I don't care. I don't need to come in here and tell you who the hell I am. I don't give a crap. I want to hear what you guys got. Hatch over here is a brewer, right? Like a hardcore brewer. Man, I've learned so. We're going to keep in touch. This is why I love this. So I am not the person to come in here and go, look at who the hell I am. I wear a chef coat because it's easy. And I don't like fucking doing laundry, right? This is who I am, right? So if you have any questions, I am always at your service. But if you need to tell me, hey, have you tried this? Look at this. I'm all ears. All ears. All right? So let's go. Let's move on. Now you know who I am. Oh, companies real quick. So I have 2 companies. I have Advanced Hospitality Consulting Group. That is the one that I've had for 8 years now. It is a full consulting group for all food and beverage and catering. There's 2 divisions. One is I do full operational logistics for all restaurants and catering. So I'll come in and I'll overview all of your operations, P&Ls, set up manuals, set up training. Usually it's for small to medium-sized businesses that are looking to take the next step, who want to brand themselves, but put their brand in paper, and they have no idea how to do that. And I go in with a group, me, and then I hire a couple other people that come in, and we do everything, the scope of everything. And with that, they get all of my knowledge from menu making, food costing, food menu design, all that stuff kind of gets put into place. It's been incredibly valuable. The one thing that I did not listen to Jack is I branded myself and not the company. And so I was handcuffed. I was limited by what I could do because it was my name. Finally, I started teaching my colleagues and mentoring. That's been the biggest thing in the last couple of years, mentorship and teaching. And now I really don't do that much anymore. The second part of that division is I do logistical planning, project management, coordination, and events up to about 25 to 30,000 people. So I'll get called in to go to Vegas. Somebody has a big client, has a big event they want to do over a course of 4 or 5 days. My team will come in, I'll oversee and make sure that all the logistics are in plan. And when we usually do like a beef purchase for the next year, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds of beef. I'm buying futures, right? I'm buying futures, and all that stuff has to be coordinated coming in and talk. That's what my Advanced Hospitality Consulting Group does. I was talking with Nicole recently. Now I've been helping companies franchise, and now I'm starting to take a piece of that franchise, and it's kind of residual. It's a nice income that I don't have to deal with anymore. So I'm leveraging myself out of that handcuff, and it's been very valuable. The second part, drinkeatlearn.com, that started years ago. I brought it back. Really, this is my food science history. You guys get to explore food and drink with me as I go along. And this website is kind of changing since being a part of the podcast, which is very thankful. A lot of you guys have been reaching out to me, how I can improve it, how I can change it, and what we can do. And I'm really excited to where it's going. The splash page is up. You'll have some QR codes in there. Please, if you guys could link in and just join my email list so I can start getting some people and some followers and just kind of get some traction there. I think it's going to help. And that to me is going to hopefully be like my retirement, like have fun and just enjoy life thing. So, all right. Why the hell are we here? So today we're going to talk about milk washing. Has anyone heard of milk washing before? One person. Okay, good. I'm hoping, because this topic is near and dear to my heart. Something I wanted to do, something that's very important. We talk about a lifestyle here, and sometimes we need to take a moment for ourselves and meditate and relax and enjoy. And so milk washing is a concept that I'm really into. It's the newest trend in self-care. The boldest way to use whey, and it goes well with Cheetos and Bud Light. So that's not me. I thought it looked like JR, but no, it's not. No, milk washing is it's a great way. No, guys. So milk washing is something really cool. I'm gonna need this right now. Milk washing is something that's pretty cool. So the concept is kind of simple. Is you take a liquid and you add milk into it. That liquid needs to be acidic based, right? Once milk hits it, it's going to separate. Now, normal process of acid base separation is you're basically just separating the whey from the curds, and you want to keep those nice and separate, and the whey's happy and the curds are happy. Doing milk washing, I'm forcing that liquid whey into another solution, whether it's broth, whether it's alcohol, and we'll get into some really cool things about that, and I'm pulling those curds out. Now, those curds are a little different than what you'd expect from like the kefir, different style like cheeses that you would get from doing it from an acid separation. The bonds aren't the same. You've literally like aggressively shaken these bonds of this case of the. I'm getting excited. We'll get to that in a second. The science behind it, I get pumped up about this stuff. All right, so milk washing and some of the variations. So Some people can call this milk clarification, right? But it's a bit different, right? For me, milk washing is when I use alcohol. Milk clarification is when I'm basically clarifying any other liquid. Heard? So there's numerous ways where cheese and whey have been discussed on TSP. This one, like I said, is I really wanted to bring something that was very different, something fun, and something we can apply to things. This is an acid whey-based technique. You're usually using citrus and vinegar. This is where the coffee came in because I have some we'll talk about in a second, kind of cool. We're using pasteurized, non-cultured, rennetless-derived whey. You can use any milk you want. The more fat content, the curds do change, but the texture of the liquid left behind is also enhanced too, which is kind of cool. So like I said, we'll be separating the curd and whey in a secondary liquid, leaving the whey and removing the curds. The curds left over can be made into several different variations of cheese, and we'll get to that in a second because the curds are very delicate and you got to be kind of particular, but you can use them to a really cool thing. Infusing, when you start getting into this, you can start thinking about the application. This application kind of snuck on the scene a few years ago in the mixology world, where also I'm always at your service too. I've won 2 national mixology contests, and Matt and I were geeking out about that too. And Matt, dude, you're awesome, dude. Thank you for everything you've talked to me about. So I love mixology, right? And so mixologists started using this technique, and they're just kind of here. They're not thinking outside the scope. You can actually take and infuse your milk before you put it into separation, right? So allowing flavors to be incorporated into a liquid in a very complex way that's not direct. You're not getting overloaded of some, maybe I want an essence of something. I could add it into the milk, and then I want a prevailing herb or flavor, bless you, into that liquid. I can do that later. I want hints of something, aromatics. I can do that through the milk. Bless you, man. Like I said, infusing milk with herbs, spices, and other ingredients can infuse complex flavors in foods, and knowing when to use this technique based on flavor. So to do this, you have to use some sort of acid, lemon juice, vinegar. That tartness is going to translate into the final product, right? And so using this, you need to know that you're going to have some sort of tartness that needs to be kind of adopted in the end. And things I can think of that were not on here, think of like doing this with like a liquid for ceviche. Right, so you're using the ceviche. The ceviche is really good with some lemon juice in it. So just knowing that if you don't want that tartness, this is something you may need to steer clear from, or using applications like coffee or something that could have some more acidity that a lot of people haven't bridged these two things together. Let's just start basics, right? And this is going to be very simple, just so you get an idea of what the science behind it is. The milk proteins and structure. Milk is made water, fat, lactose, proteins, and caseins, and you can get into a little more detail, but I'm just going to keep it simple, right? Caseins are proteins suspended in milk, right? When the milk is exposed to acid environment, the structure of those caseins change, and they disrupt these bonds that keep them together, to keep them kind of like nice and floating and happy in there and just chilling, right? And then all of a sudden the acid comes in and they freak out, right? They're hydrophobic and they freak out and they want to start breaking apart, and they like going with things that they know, right? And they'll start going to other caseins, and then they'll start bonding those caseins, and all of a sudden you've got this chain reaction where you've got curds. Right, and then what's left over is your whey. Once these proteins seek stability and from binding together, forming curds that coagulate and trap. So basically what happens is when you have, let's take for instance a broth, and let's take a broth, and I've got beef, and you've got all these particulates in it, and maybe I throw in some red wine vinegar or something just to get it to a certain pH. I forgot my pH meter in the car. That's all right. I get it to a certain pH meter, a pH like around 4.6-ish, maybe 5-ish if I need. And then I dump the milk in. All of a sudden, it's going to separate. As soon as those curds start to form, it's going to grab all of the particles, the floating particles, like legitimately particles, and you start clarifying it. And all of a sudden, all these, like, the same thing happens when you're doing beer, right? When you're finding beer and conditioning beer. But this time, I'm using the milk to do this. So we're going to talk more about it in a second. So the ideal pH range for milk clarification is 4.6 to 5.2. This is the pH when casein proteins are the most prone to start breaking apart. Right, more aggressive, lower the pH, the more intense the acidity, and the more it's going to affect flavor. So that balance in there is what I was asking Nicole about yesterday. Was how can I control that a little bit more? And I felt bad because it was cryptic, but I was really trying to add some notes to this today. Casein proteins start to bind together, create curds, and when this happens, the curds start grabbing other impurities. I feel later on, I'm going to pull it out. I in my truck, I have a pH meter, and it's a food safe pH meter that I recommend everyone have. If you're doing any kind of fermentation, if you want to feel better about like just knowing how to ferment things and if it's safe and tight, I suggest you reach out and get one. I'm actually going to go grab it later. I'll put it in my back pocket. And if you guys want to look at it, we can test things that you're drinking, right? We can just do that kind of thing, right? I think it's something that everyone should have. This is a must for me. And it's a must for me when you are making like cultured hard cheese at home. This is a must. You have to continually check your pH. And one of those things, just shove it in there. It is solid. So, all right, how milk clarification removes impurities. As these curds form, they act like a fine net and they grab all these things. Now, the other thing they grab too, tannins and bitter astringent flavors. So you can experiment with different teas at different strength levels and then pull that astringency out. Now, what happens and what's left over, the end result is a clarified liquid. But what happens is that whey bonds where those liquids were left from all the particulates. That whey is now kind of emulsified in there. And now you've got this really silky, smooth texture that you've probably never experienced before. But the mouthfeel is what you're aiming for in this. This is really the goal. It gets this very silky, smooth, like luxurious flavor, and it does not taste milky, okay? Casein and milk have they're hydrophobic, parts that attract and bind to the fats, and the hydrophobic compounds in the liquid be clarified further enhances. So as soon as those bonds are breaking, man, they're really trying to grab all those particulates. Okay. After that point, you're going to want to pick it up, take the curds, and you're going to strain the liquid, right? And so you pick the curds out and you strain it out, and you have this liquid down here. If you pass that liquid that's already been clarified through the curds again, those curds will continue to pick up more particulates. And you can actually get a liquid pretty dang clear using this technique. It's not on here. I've done a colorless Bloody Mary before. I've taken tomatoes and I've clarified it over and over and over and over again, to the point where it tastes like tomato, but it's clear, right? It's very clear, right? The process leaves behind a liquid cleaner and taster, smoother mouthfeel, and the milk proteins capture it. We talked about that. Okay, so this is where it gets really fun, right? The magic of milk and ethyl alcohol and ethanol. There's something about this connection that's amazing. Okay, so ethanol is one of the few things that we can drink that both are fat and water soluble. Okay, this means the flavors from the fat and water will bond with ethanol and make a very unique liquid. Alcohol bonds, and what happens is that you're basically carrying fats that are not tasteable, or liquid or flavors in water that are not tasteable. When you combine these with alcohol, the alcohol enhances it. We'll talk about like whey. This is a new slide here. I apologize. Whey as both water and flavor compounds can be expressed only by. So think about like when you're doing vodka tomato sauce, right? I think everybody's had like a pasta with some vodka sauce. You don't taste the vodka in it, right? It's not prevalent. You're adding alcohol so that the flavor compounds in the tomato, the acid, the water, and the fats have something to emulsify together with and come out. It's a flavor bump. It's food science to the max right here, right? I'm just using the same technique into the whey, right? I'm using the whey as my carrying agent, right? So this whey to alcohol emulsion is almost a perfect pairing, because I can manipulate whey and milk in such a way that I can add flavors, I can add more cream, more fat, I can do so much, and then I can manipulate my alcohol as well. I can do lower ABV and not get such an aggressive emulsification and mouthfeel, or I can go to the extreme, bump my cream up and go up to freaking Everclear if I have to, and start really pulling out some intense flavors that otherwise you can't pull out. Okay?
Can you say,
yeah,
what you like when you said that about the clear Bloody Mary? I'm like, okay, this is why we're doing this. Without a long explanation,
yeah.
You just say one or two or three things that you would do with this.
Oh, in the end, I got you. In the end, I got you.
Okay. You might want to just dribble one right now.
Yeah.
Don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, cool. So you're good.
So getting back to Jack's bloody tomato. So like you have whey,
yeah,
and you've got like curds and tomatoes, and you're passing the whey through that, and you're getting a clear thing.
Yeah. So let's boil down even simpler. Okay. So real simple, carnivore diet people here. I'm trying, right? Your broth you make on a regular basis. Okay. It's got particulates in it, all this stuff. You could take this broth, you could put acid into it, vinegar, whatever you want into it, pour the milk in, let it clarify. One, it's become more shelf stable because your particulates aren't going to be floating in there, they can spoil. So it's a longer shelf life. Two, you're bumping up your protein. right? You're getting that protein bump from your whey, right? The clarified broth then can be frozen very well. It holds really well. It travels well. It drinks very well, right? You've got some added benefits on the homestead as far as like preservation, clarification of like broths and liquids. Then you can get into cooking techniques, and we've got some really cool recipes coming up that I think will be kind of connect the two dots. I got to get kind of through this science portion, and then we get to the fun part. I know. All right. So boom, enter the milk punch. I love my wife. She's so cool. All right. What the hell is milk punch? So milk punch is taking this milk washing and clarification historical background. Traditionally, punch or milk punch referred to the mixed drinks around the 1700s, often made with 5 different ingredients. And then they became like the big punch bowl kind of thing. They added milk into it to kind of make the taste better. The use of the milk in the cocktails were probably a happy accident because the alcohol was not very good back in the 1700s. It was very off flavors, but they really didn't know why they were doing this. But if you look back in history, posset was a drink that in the Middle Ages that people used to drink. They used to take hot milk and then put citrus juice and ale and different things, and it would curdle, and they would actually stir it as they drank, and it was pretty nasty. Okay. It eventually evolved in this thing called syllabub, another cocktail of ancient kind of history that you still see today, but they actually end up whipping those curds on top, and you can see how they separate here. And that's a pretty traditional drink that you find in some English places. Oh, then we get into gin. 1700s, 1800s, gin was in England, was everywhere. There was a lot of issues. I mean, people didn't know how to distill gin. There's a lot of historical things in the background about gin. But it wasn't made well, right? This is where people were starting getting sick because of improper distilling and methanol. And so they had to figure out ways to make it taste better. And this milk clarification was something they did early on. They didn't know why they were doing it. They just knew they added milk. It tasted better, and it kind of took these flavors away. A little fun fact, who here knows slow gin? So slow gin, same idea. People were making gin at the same time. England was trying to figure out a way to mark property lines. And the rich people had stone walls, and the poor people had slowberry bushes. I think it's called hackleberry, but things like that there. So they would make gin in their tubs and all these horrible distilled ways, and it tasted like crap. They would take these slowberries and they would throw it in the gin, and that's how a slow gin was created, like a liqueur, a little more sugar to it. So historical contents, we were trying to figure out how to make alcohol taste like freaking better. So in the end, bartenders started clarifying all their stuff, their cordials and liquors and milk, improved mouthfeel. They really weren't sure why. And then Benjamin Franklin came along. Franklin recipe for milk punch still exists today. Showcases how this method really became popular in high society. Fun fact, also, if you guys are fun thing about Ben Franklin, he wrote a book or a publication, The Drinker's Dictionary. It's 19 terms to call someone who's drunk. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. So that's the recipe for the milk punch that Ben Franklin did. If you guys want that, I can always get that to you. Super fun. Makes 15 quarts. She said it. It was a party. He drank, so it was a party. All right, so the evolution. What the hell are we doing here, right? So the clarification, chefs and bartenders started doing this in Europe, and chefs, they started using it for consommes and different things. It really starts blending in the artistic side of what you can do with science, right? Now let's get down to the nitty gritty. Clarifying milk on the homestead. There's a lot of different ways we're going to do this. I'm going to show you some different techniques here. So obviously milk washing through cocktails, super fun. And we've got a recipe for you. You're going to have a little QR code. You can look up the recipe on my website. But really, it's going to be making a simple whiskey sour using this milk clarification. Super fun. If you like whiskey sours, I think it's a really good recipe to try. But that's fun. The best part of it, too, is that you can batch this, right? So because you're clarifying it, you can actually make it in a punch bowl. The particulars are refined out, and you can let it sit for hours and not worry about anything. And it's a great way to kind of serve on a mass basis. Brining liquid with beer and wine. So in a moment, you'll see how I'm going to use this technique, incorporated it into a brining liquid that I can then use for something like turkey for Thanksgiving, right? Sour beer conditioning. You can add this after when you're conditioning a beer, or when you're filtering it after you can use this to add more of that mouthfeel in a tart way through the beer, right? Clarified broths and soups. We talked about that. Clear coffee, teas, ciders, and kombucha. When you have issues where your tea's coming too harsh or your kombucha went a little too far, and you can use the same technique into filtering out different things. Lastly, infused syrups. You can actually take it and infuse it so far down that you can cook it down, that whey liquid, into a syrup. and use it for glazes and baking situations. And for me, I like to keep it light. I do it in rum, and then I make rum cake out of it, right? And the mouthfeel, I still get this really silky, smooth, luxurious feel, and you're not really sure why. Is it butter? It's the way that you're using, but the way you extracted it is what really made the difference. So here it is, classic cocktail, the clarified whiskey sour. Smooth, it smooths the harsh flavors. Milk curds bind together, and I pull all the acid, tannins, and impurities, leaving a really soft whiskey and citrus blends. What's nice is I use my whiskey sour, I use rye. So I still get all that nice peppery rye, but it just makes it this really like luxurious feeling. You're not really sure why. Balance and sweetness of flavor. So remember, I'm using a tartness to pull that extraction out. And so with that tartness, I'm using that with the lemon juice that you would normally put into your whiskey sour. In visual appeal, the more that you actually pass this through the whey, through the curd, you can actually get a pretty translucent, weird looking whiskey sour that has incredible flavor. It's really fun. Again, think about like colorless Bloody Mary. They're pretty fun little things to do. And again, it's perfect for pre-batching. All right. Infused milk clarification with food. So infused milk with herbs. So before I do anything, I'll take milk, put it on the stove very gently, add in some herbs, and then I'm going to take that milk, put it into a alcohol or solution, usually like wine, and then let that curdle out. And what happens is it dumps all those oils and stuff from the rosemary and different things into the wine, and I remove the curd, and now I've got this really fun, funky liquid of wine whey blend. The clarified milk works as marinades as well. So I've got that acidity in there, adding that into your meat to let it marinate and soften the meat before you cook it's awesome. It's one of the best flavors that I've ever experienced, especially with lamb. I'll do it with red wine and lamb, and it's phenomenal. Other side, Sauvignon Blanc. I'll use Sauvignon Blanc with this same technique, a lemon zest, something previous. I'll infuse the milk beforehand. Lemon zest, whatever I'm doing, lemongrass, ginger, different things, garlic. I'll throw it in there, even if I'm using raw garlic, and it can be kind of hard by basically running it through this milk clarification by putting it into a liquid acidic and separating it, right? That harshness of that garlic is gone, but you've got this like punch of like garlic flavor. It's solid. Now, again, I'm marinating that in fish and shellfish, and depending on my acidity, I'll even do ceviche with it. Right, I'll use that as ceviche, separate from just pure lemon juice. Right, it'll be like a whey lemon juice. Again, this mouthfeel is incredible. Right, classic food dishes and clarification. So I think this is going to speak to Jack's heart. Right, this is a herb milk clarified Pinot Noir for the beef bourguignon. Right, beef bourguignon. Do not let that word scare you. Bourguignon means from Burgundy. Okay, it's area in France. Right. Pinot Noir is the home of Burgundy. Like that's just two things live together. Okay, so think about this, and we'll get to the recipe. Basically, I'm taking red wine, Pinot Noir, and I'm going to throw herbs in it, thyme, rose, whatever I want to put in there for my beef bourguignon. Okay, then I'm taking milk. Excuse me, I put the herbs in the milk. I apologize. Then I throw that into the wine, and it separates. Then I take my beef that I've cubed up a little bit, and I take that same wine whey together, and I marinate it. Right, just let it sit in there, get it nice, and just let it be happy. I pull it off, sear my meat, start doing my bourguignon, and then I use my braising liquid. I add a little more fresh Pinot Noir. I add my marinating liquid that I've just been whey concentrated stuff, and then I cook it. And let me tell you, Jack, that is like, it's heaven. It is one of the best bourguignon variations I've ever had. And it's because you're using that whey and the proteins and fat that you're pulling out of it, incorporating it into your liquid that you could never get by adding it separately. Never. I'm using alcohol to use those fats as basically a transfer of flavor that you cannot get. Deep flavorful, marinated. Yeah, we talked about this. It's phenomenal. QR code is there. You can always come to me for the QR code too. Clarifications of fermented beverages. Again, kombucha is probably one of the best things I've used this for. Just because if it's murky, you've got different things, you've just different flavors that are being pitched. You can save your kombucha batch. I've never tried it with mead before, and I would be interested to see what happens with it. But for me, kombucha, sometimes I get off flavors depending on whatever I'm doing. This saves a lot of it. The other thing for me is beer, especially when I'm doing a sour. A big thing right now is lactose beer, right? These beers that have these really funky flavors in it. Lactose is not fermentable, so it's very hard to put something in there, right? So the best way to add that kind of lactose feel and fat is during your. It also helps with clarification and fining. So while you're fining, you dump this liquid in, basically raft it, pull it out, and now you've got a heavy lactose-rich feel in your sours. Gose is another one I would probably do it with. Hard cider as well. Again, we get to the mixology, cocktails with infused milk. Again, infuse your milk with vanilla bean, cardamom, matcha, whatever you want. Put some alcohol in it if you want. If not, you don't have to, right? One of the ones I loved on here is the clarified eggnog cocktails that you can make with this, right? If you know how to make eggnog, you can actually clarify that and kind of do some cool stuff with it. Milk clarify. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're, the cheesiest. I love my wife. Watch this. The cheesiest benefit of milk clarification. All right, so what's left? All right, so it's what you're not expecting, right? The curds that are left over, they've been separated, but they have almost no structure, right? Because I haven't bonded them. I've actually broke protein and fat out of them, and now that's in the liquid that's remaining. What's left is, it's almost like, if you can imagine, uncooked ricotta almost. It looks kind of like that. We're leaving a good remainder of the fat proteins in the original liquid. The curds that remain are coagulated, but they don't have a strong bond. Alcohol can also affect the bond of it, so it could just look like a lumpy mass if you're not careful. The curds left over have some intense flavor for sure, even including alcohol. So if you've done it through alcohol, you can add some extra flavor, or this is what I prefer, blending in fresh cream to make a spread, almost like a soft kind of spreadable cheese thing. If you took those curds and pressed them, it's not going to form a type of cheese that you would normally look like, but it would look like something like a paneer, right? Something that's soft, and you would take pressing, and it would do well with aging, especially if you have alcohol in those curds. You could actually end up pressing it and keep pressing it and keep pressing it and make a little bitty, would amount to, it depends on how much curds you've got, but little bitty bits of cheese that are pressed over time, but it would still be in the terms of like a paneer, an aged paneer. Who's had paneer here, obviously? Right? I love paneer, and I think it's fun. The last part is where we're going to have some fun. It can be cooked slightly with the same technique, so you can cook it and get like a very soft ricotta. And so I came up with this recipe. It's a chocolate milk washed espresso rum tiramisu. Okay, so basically I have diabetes, Jack. You know why, right? So the idea is this. I'm not just using milk, I'm using chocolate milk to start the process, right? So, and I've experimented with like abuelita chocolate too. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I'll even add like cayenne pepper and stuff in there too, but like chocolate milk, okay? And I know I'm going to go through rum. So I take chocolate milk, I can infuse different things if I want to. Vanilla, coffee is usually in the liquid too with it, right? And in the rum. And so I'll take that milk and I'll separate it. Now I've got chocolate curds, little curd bits, and I've got this really intense rum that's clarified and just silky and just elegant, right? And so then I start the tiramisu process. I take the ladyfingers and I soak them, and then I take those chocolate curds and I basically whip them in with a little bit of more mascarpone to give them a little more structure. But you talk about compound flavoring, right, upon just simple techniques. And in the end, you think about this, your compound flavor, your flavor, you can't hear this thing about from y'all, flavor stacking, you're flavor stacking, but you're using products on the homestead are maximizing the benefit. It's not, I hate to say it's the boring, like, well, we can take this whey and help ferment vegetables. I get that, right? Those techniques are really cool. We can dry it and make whey protein powder, and we can bread certain things with it. And if we're on the carnivore diet, this is an example of something that's way outside the box, right? I wanted to bring something that was possibly you guys have never heard of before for whey use. I didn't want to come here going alternative uses for whey, and we're using it for vegetable fermentation. I love it, right? I wanted to bring something and go, holy crap, what the hell is he talking about, right? Thank you. But here's the goal. I learned from you guys. Ask, right? I wanted to show this to you because I knew you were going to have questions. Come talk to me if you're interested. Those who aren't, I'm okay with that. This is outside. This is some crazy stuff. But talk about utilizing products and being able to look and go, I'm going to use sheep milk for that. I'm going to use sheep milk and I'm going to do a braised lamb shank with that. And I'm going to take that sheep's milk and I'm going to put it into some Merlot or something and braise that. Like for those of you foodies out there, this is like a key to a whole other world that I'm bringing to you from the mixology world, right? I appreciate it. When we were talking about topics, Jack goes, "Hey, the first topic, what are your thoughts?" I'm like, you know what? This has been eating at me. I've been working with cheese. And I fell in love with whey. And I said, and you didn't hear it, but I'm thinking, I'm going to do this. I kept asking questions. I know he's getting a little annoyed, but but it's because this topic was so out there, right? And next time, if I ever come back, now that I know the demographic, the kind of the setup, like, I got the recon here. I would, if I can, I might see if I can get on Amazon and see if I can get some stuff to actually do a milk clarification here tomorrow night. See if we can do that.
What do you need?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to see it.
What do you need?
There will be runners. We can get you stuff.
And my wife is actually looking for stuff on Amazon, and I think I got it. I think I need a couple things, and we're good. But I think I can do it.
We have these things called stores here.
We're good.
You walk in and you give them this thing called money.
Okay.
And you come out with items.
I think what I want to do is
and people are going anyway.
I think what I would like to do is see if I can make enough for everyone to have a cocktail with it. That would be the goal. So let me see what I can do. But anyway, I know this is out there. I know. And I know that I'm your expert council member. That's like the niche one. That's all this weird, cool food stuff. But anything that you guys need from me, food, beverage, history, whiskey, I don't care what it is. I am at your service. And if I don't know, I'm going to tell you, hey, I don't really know, but I'm going to find out for you, right? I'm not an expert because I'm who I am. I'm an expert because I'm curious and I want to learn. And I've made a lot of damn mistakes in my life, right? We were talking about that, Patrick and I. Keep pushing at it. Keep trying. Keep working at it, right? Like I'm an expert because I never quit learning. And I don't hope that I never do stop learning. So, and you guys are a big part of that. So questions, the whole room.
Four areas I want you to ask about: lime versus lemon, hot curry. I love it. Can you do something with that? What about sous vide? Have you used that in this situation?
Sure. And
on the scientific side, A1 versus A2 milk. Have you looked at that, the casein difference and how that might?
Ultra pasteurized A2, you might need some. So let me see if I can go through it. So you'll need to up your acidity level to break some of the bonds in the A2s, but it's basically the same thing. You're just really, for me, A2 is when it's just a finer screen for them to push the milk through, right? And so all of a sudden your caseins are, your fat globules. So I could be wrong on this because maybe I was taught wrong. It's just a level of pasteurization that you're doing, right? So it's a different level of so pasteurization is one, they heat it, but they also, when they homogenize, they shoot it through this filter, like this screen, and it atomizes it. Okay.
A1 and A2 are different proteins found in cows.
Right.
And A2 is easier for people to digest.
Right.
Here's my problem with the question, Jake. It was not stated as a question, so we're not sure what you're asking.
Right. So yes, it is, but it's because it's broken down. The lactose is actually broken down more. That's why people can, if I'm not mistaken, that's why people can digest it better. Right. But since those globules are broken down, those fat molecules are broken down. Like when I'm pouring milk, raw milk for cheese processing, I don't want agitation. I want a nice, smooth pour because I don't want to break any. But you're talking about intense, like bastardization of those cells. That's what makes it easier to process, right? So you can get that same coagulation, but you're going to need a little more acid. That's how, in my opinion. Milk is a strange freaking animal. Milk does things that I've never seen. I've pitched so much rennet and culture into something. Go, why is it not taking? Why am I not getting any? It's a strange bird. Temperature, time, all those things come into play. So if you ever need anything, reach out to me, right? Hey, let's talk about what temp are you at? What time are you at? Let me see if I can go back. Curry. Curry is a whole other topic.
Wait,
Go.
That was one question.
Okay, go
we'll
for
go
it. Yeah,
on.
go. Keep going.
We'll weave Jake's back in, but we got a line here.
Hey, Ken, thanks for the presentation. It was great.
Yeah.
I love to cook.
Yeah.
I love to make unique and different types of cocktails. And you just like blown me away with a whole new world I never knew existed
Thank
here. Is there like an online course where I can really delve into this and learn this technique?
You know,
Launching
Well,
next week on Thursday.
let me tell you something. Being a part of the community here, I've seen a lot of good people build programs like that. You're standing right next to one of them, right? So these are conversations I want to have some of these people now that I get to know them face to face, and they can see my authenticity, and I'm not just some random guy. And now start picking their brains. Hey, what's a good way to do this? I want to do this out of labor of love. I do this because I get teary-eyed. I love hospitality. I love this. You saying, hey man, I'm trying something for the first time. Like that to me is what this is all about. My career. Touching all of you guys going, oh my God, I've never had something like that before. And not me making it, you guys doing it. You guys going, I've never knew I could do that before. My man, I'm so proud of you. That for me, food and beverage is life. It's the culture of who we are. It's the history of who we are. So yeah, so my point with that is that if you need, reach out to me right now. I probably will have something being built, but I need to figure out how to do that. I need to do it right. I need to learn from the people around me and not make the same mistakes.
If only you had an email list.
What's that? Heard that, Jack. What's that? Heard that.
So I love old fashions. Do you have any recipe for using this technique with a unique old fashioned?
Old fashioned. Oh man, yeah. You know, for me, old fashioned will always be a rye. For me, never use bourbon in an old fashioned. That's number one. Rye. The sweetness of that sugar needs to be balanced out with the spice of that rye. But in reality, I would just say take your favorite rye and then just add some milk to it, right? But I would use orange juice as my acid, right? Or I would do it maybe an acidic, find a tart cherry, just a hint of it, right? And then test it. I wish I brought my meter. Test it. Make sure you're in that range, right? And then you're going to take that and pour it into the milk. Don't pour the milk into it. Once you pour the milk into it, the pH in that area changes and the coagulation doesn't work as well. So pouring it into it, you get a better kind of coagulation, and then separate it and then use that rye for your old fashioned. While we're on that topic, this has been annoying me. I apologize if I'm annoying anybody. This whiskey smoker, I'm going to teach you guys something right now. Who smokes meat? How hard is it to smoke a lean piece of meat? You need fat. Fat. So you got all these guys and all these people, and this is where I get annoyed. I'm going on a soapbox here. You got a lot of people who regurgitate information they see online, and they think that they're experts and all. I just heard about this the other day. Think about this. How can you get smoke into a cocktail if there's no fat? Heard? Right? So here's the deal, right? We're going to talk about it in the top. This might be something maybe next year. Fat washing. Adding fat into your cocktail so those smoke molecules, that glycol, those chemicals, have something to attach to. It's great for aromatics, and it's great to, that smells good and taste. But if you really want to smoke something, add fat into your damn alcohol. Yeah. It'll blow your mind, right? Again, reach out to me. Let me know. I can help you out with it. But that's if you really want to smoke something, a cocktail. Put some fat in it.
I'm one of the carnivore guys, and my thing is I want the fat and the protein and not much else.
Yeah. So
like when you're separating and pulling the protein out with the whey, you're pulling it out of the cheese then, right?
Well, the protein's left over. So, right. So the casein, yes, but you're getting, you got to think about how things are kind of the structure of curds and whey are, right? Curds aren't emulsified. They're just kind of hanging out. They're just fucking kind of happy in there because they're hydrophobic, right? They're not emulsifying with water, and they don't really like to be in fatty situations. They're just kind of chilling. That's why sometimes it'll just separate, right? The cream, right? So when you're thinking about, let me put it this way, you are getting some protein in that release. Is it all the protein? No, but you're getting a good amount. Really what you're looking for is preservation of the liquid, right? Now you've got basically a consommé, right? A clear broth that's flavorful, still packed with nutrients, but added nutrients because of the whey, the protein, a little bit of fat, obviously water, right? But you're getting preservation. I could actually keep that in my thermos all day long, even overnight, and it's going to be fine. One, you've got a decent enough acidity in there where nothing's really going to happen. Two, there's no particulates in it. You've got nothing that's going to be spoiling. It's liquid. It's pretty happy in there. So camping trips, I pack a big jug of broth and I'm happy. And not only that, I've got base for a soup or something that I find along the way. If I'm finding mushrooms, or I'm finding potatoes along the way, and I can throw it. To me, there's just this like love of preservation, which is why our ancestors did it, right? You're finding historically, I love history of Vikings. They would find vats dug in the ground where they would find lactic acid still in on the edges. They were holding basically whey in there and using it as keep dipping things in and just leaving them suspended, right? You're just kind of using these techniques historically in a new, fun, scientific way. No, but be fair, it's trial and error, right? Like you could try and go, it didn't work too well. Up your acidity a little bit, right? These are where you contact, hey, I'm having these issues. All right, well, let's take a look at it. This is like, here's the key. You just got to find the right door you're going to use it, right? So.
Were you saying you were using pasteurized milk only?
Yes.
Okay.
For this purposes, yes.
And raw milk's totally inappropriate for it.
No, it's not. It's not. So I love raw milk, and I don't want anyone to be scared of raw milk. That is the number one thing. But if I'm talking about preservation and I'm talking about clarifying something, there are active things inside raw milk that need to be taken care of. Okay. Listeria would be the number one thing that I would be worried about. Okay. So I would probably heat the raw milk up gently to do a very light pasteurization on it. Very light. Nothing too crazy, right? Just bring it up, temper the milk, and then I would separate it. At that point, anything left over, the acidity would just destroy it, right? That would just be like the disclaimer I would say to the open world right now. Me, I'd throw raw milk in with a 4.9 to 5.2. I'd throw raw milk and be just as happy. And I would probably have better mouthfeel because I've got such intense fat. Like I would even double it. I would even add cream into it. I would separate more cream and dump it into it, like a double brie almost, right? And you talk about the level of, first off, your curds would just be enormous, but two, the fat left over in that whey would just create this silky flavor. I'm desperately, I'm going to see if I can do this for you guys tomorrow and see if you guys can taste the difference of what I'm talking about. It's phenomenal.
Thank you for feeding us with a fire hose. Okay, this is going to be an easy question. It's a yes or no answer. Do you have some videos or something we can look at to see what your examples are? Because you're overwhelming us.
Heard that.
And if you do, would you write the link right there on that board?
Yeah, I can do that. Really, YouTube University is right now is going to be your best bet. I understand they're not going to have any food applications, and if they do, I have not seen them before. Right? I'm taking something that's very mixology oriented and forcing it into a food hole. That makes weird sense. You can definitely find some clarified milk punches and stuff online, and if you want, I can pull one up and put. But reality, it's really the technique that I'm teaching, and yes, I will find something for you.
Okay. What? Okay. I'm going to actually let Jake have a second question, but I'm asking it for him.
Go for it.
How would you apply this to a spicy curry?
Well, curry's about your spices, right? So you can flavor stack, right? So if I'm doing a curry, tomato base, whatever it is, and if I want to start with my tomato base and then throw some milk in there and it has a high enough acidity, it'll dump its way in there. It's going to make it a lot more liquidy, right? You're going to have more liquid. But if I took that milk and I put all of my curry flavor, whether it's, depending on what curry you're talking about all over the world, it's all different curries, but whatever. Right. So if you're using vindaloo or you're using some of paste or you're actually using the spices, steep that into the milk, right? Save a little bit for the rest of the dish, but steep that into the milk. You're going to get a ton more aromatics coming off of it. So you're going to put this in the milk, steep it, and it's going to look delicious. And don't drink it because I would drink it, right? Then I would dump it into, you don't have to filter this through alcohol. You can filter it through broth. You can filter it through anything you want. I've done it through tomatoes, right? Tomato puree. Dump it, and then basically separate the curd, and what you're left is this intensely curry flavored liquid that I would probably at that point render down and get it really concentrated. Boil the water off of it, right? You could definitely freeze dry. You could, yeah. This is something. It really. That's a great question. I've actually never thought about freeze drying it. I think it would work really well, freeze drying it and powderizing it, and then you could just scoop it in. I don't know how mouthfeel would translate.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a texture. There's a
he always
textural
asks that
thingness
question.
that comes into play by leaving it liquid. But again, I'm here for you guys to have fun, right? This is different. I know this is left field crap, but have fun with it, right? If you guys came here and heard the same thing every time, I would be bored. But
You mentioned like getting large curds.
what's that?
You mentioned when you were pulling the way out, you're getting large curds.
No, that's
No,
so.
but
I was
how-
talking with him.
How do you get small versus large curd? Like I've seen
In this way,
sure,
you're always going to get really wimpy curds because when I put the milk in, especially in alcohol, I'm literally ripping those bonds apart. It's not a gentle, oh, this is nice acid, and we're just going to separate over time, and everything's going to coagulate super nicely. I'm robbing portions of casein. I'm robbing proteins and fats and water from the casein. I'm not just separating it. I'm literally going and grabbing it and literally emulsifying it into a new liquid. So that act is very violent, and the curds don't want to bind together. They're very damaged. If you look at the ends of the, again, I could have made this worse as far as like scientific, all these casein globulins and all the casein at that point, their ends are really fucking ragged. Like they don't want to bond to anything, right? When alcohol, ethanol, they got two ends that are polar and negative, right? And they want water and they want oil, and they're happy with both. So when it hits there, it's fucking grabbing that from those caseins, just going and making it super happy, right? And what's happening is they're grabbing all this yummy flavor from the milk, just sweetness and just all this delicious, and bringing it into the new liquid, whether it's wine, alcohol, whatever the hell it is, right? What's left is just like this ragged, torn up casein that's trying to coagulate with a bunch of other ones, and it does, but it's just not. It's not structured. The lattice work isn't strong enough to hold anything. So to do that, you either need to warm it up, like reheat the curd again, separate, cook the curd a little bit, right? Be gentle with it. It'll start to be happy and melt again and be a little, better and better, but it's never going to be like you would a gentle, yeah, with rennet, super gentle, right? With acid, it's fine. It's just happy to separate. You're literally going and just pulling it apart. But the benefit is the alcohol that you're clarifying into, it's got all that sweet yumminess that it can hold. And the more alcohol content, the more of those flavors it's going to grab. It's going to go, oh, I want that fat. I want that water. I want that fat. Because alcohol wants both. They're polar and opposite. They're polar and negative points of alcohol, and they're super happy. Casein's not that way. They're hydrophobic. They're just going, here, take it. And they end up with this clumpy mess. But you can still use it. Don't waste it. Hell, compost heap. Those are cooked curds. Those are cooked curds, right? So listen, I am here for you. Nicole and I were geeking out about it. I just asked her, hey, teach me, because I want to learn. Cheese is a whole planet, right? Cooked curds, not cooked curds. What constitutes farmer's cheese versus small curd and large curd? It's a whole world. I'm still learning. I'm a year in, right? And I still have so much to learn, but you'll get there. Your best friend is someone who knows, and the best friend is someone who says, I don't know. And if I don't know, I will always tell you and let you help you.
All right, let's give Ken a round of applause. We've got a 15-minute break, and then we're up again. Oh, one more thing. We are tracking a lot of mud clods in today. So if you could do me a favor and get